last week, we learned the three most important words that we need to know in a lexicon. Ein od milvado, which means there's no one but Hashem. No one but Hashem. We don't see anything but Hashem. We don't see somebody gets us angry, somebody that did us harm. It's all agents of Hashem. And whenever endure some type of pain, some type of tribulation, some type of uncomfort, always comfort myself, wait, it is a thank you, Hashem, that there's not health or income. It's not, and if it's health or income, then we find something else to thank Hashem. That we thank Hashem that it's light, it's not something worse. All the time, because we look at Hashem. Thank Hashem that it's this could maybe be atonement for something I did wrong. And thank you, Hashem, for waking me up, giving me a spiritual wake-up call, and getting me to take a look at myself. That way, I don't go into the high holidays with all types of outstanding debts. Hashem reminded me, recently, I got a bill. I got a bill for back pay, something I owed, and it said that I was undercharged. I said, no problem. They realized that it was right, that someone did make a miscalculation. I didn't pay attention to it, and they paid it. And we pay these bills happily. Why? Because they accumulate, and when they pile up, and then they come back, and if Hashem would send us the bills, the spiritual bills all at once, it would be very difficult, be very challenging. Okay, so we're going to learn that these three and simple words of Emuna, the benefit they have in our lives, nothing else. And our goal is to fully internalize what we learn. What's our goal to internalize what we learn? It's like a soldier. A soldier learns how to operate a weapon by heart, where he could take it apart in his sleep and eyes closed. In combat arts, Krav Maga, or in Taekwondo, or in Judo, you learn do a move over and over and over again, hundreds of times, 1,000 times. So it's second nature. It's right away second nature. Southern Right says second nature. And what we do to do spiritually, even all the more so, is to accustom ourselves to see Hashem, to think of Hashem all the time. Some difficult, we say, ouch. Before we say ouch, say Hashem. And then the ouch is a lot less serious. Okay, we think about Hashem all the time. Hey, this is coming from Hashem. Whatever's happening to me is not from an enemy, because it's not an enemy. It could be something else. It could be a virus. It could be a bacteria. It could be a war. It's happening from Hashem. Everything Hashem does is for the best. And this, we want to internalize this. Okay, so the more Emuna is internalized in every ingrained fiber, then we have our quick combat reaction, because the evil inclination, he comes back, he throws challenges at us. What's the evil inclination? Is evil thoughts. That's what comes from the evil inclination. That's why it's called evil inclination. He throws negativity at us. And look how few people you know are optimists, and how many people are worried, and how many people are anxious, and how many people suffer stress, and how many people are all these negative emotions. It all comes from the evil inclination. And if people don't want to deal with inclination, and they don't want to make spiritual effort, because spiritual effort means bringing Hashem into your life. Ooh, if you bring Hashem into your life, that's obligatory, because a person can't have Hashem in his or her life and do dishonest business or be immoral or do all types of be involved in all types of debauchery. You can't do that. But people want to do what they want to do, and they would prefer to go to the meds, the pills, and say chemical imbalance, all types of excuses, when all you have to do is really fine-tune the neshama. Fine-tune, how do we fine-tune the soul? We fine-tune the soul by adding a vitamin E, spiritual vitamin E, that's Emuna. Okay, so we're going to understand, I'm going to tell you a parable to help you understand how Emuna and inner peace go together. They're really husband and wife. It's the greatest shidduch. Emuna and inner peace, they go perfectly. Okay. Talk about a family. Mom, she had her Sunday night Emuna shur. Mom would go out Sunday night, every Sunday night, Emuna shur. Sunday night, by the way, in Israel is a regular night. It's not a weekend anymore. Sunday's a work day. And Sunday was convenient. Why? Because she cooked so much for Shabbat, for the Sabbath, she always had leftovers. She always had leftovers. She had 5 husky boys between the ages of 11 and 19. And she told them where the leftovers in. They got the microwave, and they picked up, they'd had a fine dinner. She'd have to cook dinner for anybody, not for her husband, not for the 5 boys. Okay. So they lived in Miami, Bal Harbor, had a spacious Bal Harbor condo. And the brothers the brothers, two of the big brothers would cook the meal, and the boys would sit down and they continue eating mom's Shabbat cooking. It was wonderful. Well, 5 minutes into dinner, the walls of the dining room, they start trembling, and they hear this blood-curdling roar like a lion's roar. If you've ever been to the zoo, and or even better than that, if you've ever been to a safari in South Africa and heard a lion, once I had the privilege of going an hour and a half south of Joburg, they took me to the lion safari, and you could hear I heard once a roar. So how close is that lion? And the guide said, oh, he's about a mile and a half away. It's a mile and a half away. There's a roar. It was like somebody was right around the corner was screaming. But they heard this roar of a lion. And the brothers, the younger brothers, they screeched in terror, and they heard it roar. One hid under the table and one hid behind the sofa. And the 15-year-old nearly fell out of the window. He's trying to escape. And the 13-year-old, he's locked himself in the bathroom. And as far as they're concerned, they heard that roar, and the end was near. Well, the youngest brother, he was a fifth grader. That's the 11-year-old brother. The oldest brother was 19. The youngest of the five, he was 11. And he remained quietly at the table. He's looking at his older brothers like they're crazy. He's quietly at the table, and he's continuing to enjoy mom's chicken noodle soup from Shabbat. It's a piece of challah that mom baked for Shabbat. He's enjoying himself, but he's not moved by the roar. Okay. Well, the lion roared again, and this time was louder than before. And he's just enjoying his chicken soup. And the other boys, the other four boys, they're petrified under the table and locked in the bathroom, and they're peeking out. And where's their little brother? He's just sitting at the table. Our little brother is allowed to be devoured. They couldn't imagine the surreal spectacle that they were about to see. About to see that their brother nonchalantly put another spoon of chicken soup in his mouth, and in the living room comes this full-size lion, African lion. What? So the boy says, he's going to eat my brother, eat my baby brother, they're trembling. Well, little boy takes his spoon, and he says, Mr. Lion, I'll bet you'd like to take mom's chicken soup. You're a carnivore, right? It's got good chunks of chicken in it. So something even weirder happened. The lion is looking at the little boy, and slowly by slowly, step by step, as if he's stalking his prey. The little boy is like a little deer out in the wilderness in South Africa. The lion approached the little boy, and the big brothers, their heartbeats, maybe they're off the charts, 160, 170, their hearts are fluttering, and their voices were frozen. They were choked up. They couldn't say a word. And even if they could scream, they didn't dare make a move, because this lion is approaching the little brother. Lion walks in. Where did the lion walk in? A condominium in Bell Harbor in Miami. And the lion is approaching step by step the little brother. Okay. The lion came within a hair's breadth of the little boy's face. He's right close to the face. And he opens his mouth wide and see these big dagger-like incisors. And the boys are about to faint, and they're petrified. Their little brothers are about to die. What's going to happen? Once again, the lion roared, and all the crystal and the wine glasses, they all fell off the table. And the king of the jungle opened his mouth wide all of a sudden, and he stuck out his tongue. And the little boy took a noodle from the chicken soup, put on the lion's tongue. Okay. So what did the lion do? He swallowed the noodle, and he came over and he kissed the little boy. Then came the big surprise. What happened after that? The lion pulled his mane off. It was a mask, and it was none other with a nice Purim mask. This is under. We're getting ready for Purim. And who was under the lion mask? It was Daddy. It was Daddy. Daddy's a big guy. Daddy's a former college football player. And Daddy's 6'3" and weighs about 240. Big guy. Filled that lion costume quite nicely. Okay. And he smiled little brother. Well, the big boys, their heart rate hasn't come down yet, and they're still trembling. But one by one, they come out of their hiding places, and they return to the dinner table. And Daddy took his seat at the head of the table, and he starts eating his chicken soup. Meanwhile, little brother, he's on the schnitzel and the potato kugel. He's gone further, and that's his favorite. And the four big brothers, they're awestruck by the little boy's courage in the face of the lion. And they ask him, little brother, how did you stay so calm when the lion walked in the dining room? And Daddy's disguise was perfect. We were all convinced that he was the real lion. Little brother, he took a bite of a sour pickle, a dill pickle that escorted his potato kugel. Potato kugel and dill pickles go together. Okay. And he said, big brothers, I don't understand your alarm. I made a simple calculation that any thinking 6-year-old could make, and I'm 11. And I don't realize how I have such unintelligent big brothers. He said, we live on the 3rd floor, right? We live on the 3rd floor. Now, the front of our condo is locked, and guests have to announce themselves on the intercom, right? Yeah, otherwise they can't get in. So we didn't hear any roar on the intercom, did we? No. Okay. And are you gullible enough to think that the lion casually walked past the doorman and roared and scared him into letting him in? And if he didn't walk past the doorman, then that means that the lion had a residence key. Okay. Now, are you stupid enough to think that the lion had a key to the residence? And even if he did have one, how can a lion's paw stick a key in a keyhole? Let's stop and think about that. The little brother looked around the table, and his brothers, his big brothers, they're all red-faced, they're embarrassed. And now he moves from the kegel, he's eating the chillin'. He's having the greatest time of his life. He loves Sunday night dinner, and he wouldn't miss Sunday night dinner. Lion's not going to bother him about Sunday night dinner. And after he finishes a mouthful of chillin', he says, okay, even if you want to tell me that the lion burst into the front door when somebody else opened it, that means that somebody else saw the lion. Now, who sees a lion in the vicinity of North Miami Beach without calling the police? Now, did you hear a siren? I didn't hear any siren. And you want to tell me that the lion snuck in unnoticed, which you already proved is impossible, because how does a lion know how to press the buttons of an elevator? Could use the elevator. And if you want to tell me that the lion didn't use the elevator, of course he didn't, and he walked up the stairwell, well, you need another residence key to open up the stairwell. And how does, again, with the paw, second to open up the stairwell, where does he get a key from? Well, the big brothers, they couldn't eat because they had lumps of embarrassment in their throat. So now little brother continues. This little guy, he was the best Gemara learner in his class in the 6th grade. This little 11-year-old guy. This is the mind. Don't think we tell a story. This is the mind of an 11-year-old that learns Gemara. Okay. He says, even if you want to tell me that someone opened up the stairwell for the lion and the lion charged up 3 flights of stairs, why didn't we hear screams? And where were the police sirens that we were supposed to hear? Okay. He says, you guys, you think it's such a silly way, and it's unbefitting your ages, and you're all bigger than me. Okay. Maybe you can invent a story of how the lion with his paw could push the combination lock of our front door. Okay, he doesn't need a key or our door, but he needs the combination. Have you seen a lion that knows how to use a combination lock? I've never seen anything like that. Seen that in the zoo? I've never heard anything like that. Okay. And even if he did, how could the lion do a combination with one thing and then turn the knob with his other paw? Lion is not that dexterous. He could run fast and he could do all types of things, but he doesn't have the dexterity of a human. So the only one that could have done all that stuff, you dumb brother, is his daddy. Only daddy could have done that stuff. You see? 11-year-old. You got to think, are we like the big brothers? That's our parable. It's just like we see things in our lives. And we say, oh, this one did it, this one did, this one did. And Russia's about to attack the Ukraine and do this, and Biden is doing this, and Putin is doing this. It's all daddy. It's not the lion. All the chaos in our lives and all the worry in our lives, it's all daddy. It's all beloved Father in heaven. It's not the lion. But do we think we're afraid of this? We're afraid of the IRS. It's not the IRS. It's daddy. The Israeli government should made it's not them. It's daddy. It's all daddy. This is ein od milvado. that we only see no matter what. Lion, you're a costume. All the difficulties in life is a costume for something that Hashem wants to convey to each one of us. The lions in our life they're all messages from Hashem. But we get upset, we get tight, we get anxious, we get all types of negative reactions, stressed out completely. We look at lions. Don't look at lions. Look at Hashem. Look at Hashem. Now, of course, we don't. We live in this world. We live in the physical world. You don't go to a zoo and go and play around inside a lion's cage because you say, oh, it's all Hashem. No, a lion it's an animal instinct. That's okay. But we see the problem or the trouble within that. For example, talk about like the pandemics, the one vaccine, another vaccine, their new strain, another strain. People are not looking at Hashem. Look at Hashem. We can't outsmart Hashem. We have to see Daddy. That's all Daddy, our beloved Father in heaven. Okay. So as soon as we see that the trouble is Daddy dressed up in a costume, beloved Father in heaven in a costume, what did we learn last week? We learned last week that everything comes from Him, number one. Who is that Him, that Hashem, that everything comes from? That is a beloved Father in heaven. Wow. That's my Father in heaven. He loves me? Yeah. Okay. So if everything comes from Him, and if it's my Father in heaven, He loves me, it's all going to be for the best, whether or not I understand. And I gave an example, the same example we said last week. Okay. If you see Mommy and Daddy see little 5-year-old Junior, he's banging, he's having a temper tantrum. He wants chocolate toffee. And Mommy and Daddy won't give it to him. Why? It looks like Mommy and Daddy are doing something. The neighbor says, oh, I'm going to call the social services. Look at your child screaming. They call it social services. You think the parents are cruel? The parents are kind. Oh, the child is having a tantrum. Why? If the parents give in to him, the child's going to have 2 holes, one in his teeth and one in his pocket in another 15 years. He's going to have rotten teeth. And he's going to have a big hole in his wallet. So parents, some things we understand with the mind of a 5-year-old that things look cruel, but they're really good. They're intrinsically good. And this way we have to see Hashem in everything. Another lion in our lives is financial difficulties. Maybe a third lion is a nasty boss or a neighbor, a problem neighbor. Okay. And the common denominator of all these problems in our lives, that they're all threatening to devour us. They're threatening, oh, I'm going to sue you and I'm going to do this to you and I'm going to do that to you. I'm going to fire you. Sorry. See, Daddy, you can threaten all you want. You can yell all you want. You can do all you want. As long as I try my best to understand the intrinsic message in each difficulty in life, and I assess myself, and that's why daily self-assessment is so very important. We have times to center ourselves, and I assess myself, and I do my very best to rectify what I may have done wrong. I don't have to worry about anything because it's all Daddy. And it's a loving Daddy. And a loving father doesn't want to hit a child because a child, every one of you is an only son, only daughter of Hashem. But Hashem wants to educate us. He doesn't want us to leave this world with unrectified bills, unpaid bills. He doesn't want us to get to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur with unpaid bills. So Hashem cleans us up all the time. And this is something that Hashem does to the Jewish people. If you look, where the Spartans and where the Vikings and where the ancient Romans and ancient Greeks and Carthage, and none of them are there anymore. None are there. So how do the Jewish people that are apparently the weakest people on earth, they're still there? Well, the Gemara explains that Hashem is all the time enabling them to pay their bills, to clean themselves up. And they don't have these outstanding bills. And so what happens with the other nations outside of the righteous of the nations are the Noahites. Okay, but outside we're talking about the nations, the idolatrous nations, that Hashem says, okay, go do what you look. And it looks like they're having a good life, but it's not a good life. It looks like if this person looks like he's having a great life, he doesn't know anything. But yet someone else might not have any money, but he doesn't know any bets. He doesn't know the bank. He doesn't know anybody. Doesn't have any credit card debts. See somebody that's driving around in a fancy car, it's not his, it's leased, and goes to fancy restaurants and this and that, then owes $60,000 in the credit company. And then someone lives a simple life and eats a vegetable salad and a hard-boiled egg for dinner, and he doesn't know a thing. So don't be jealous of the person with debts, and especially a person with spiritual debts. Okay. So King David, he was a little boy, and he knew the secret of the lion, that the lion is beloved Father in heaven. King David was a 3-year-old boy, a shepherd alone. I told you the story. He was out in the wilderness. Why was he out in the wilderness? Because his parents thought that he was an illegitimate child. His father thought he was an illegitimate child. He was not, but his father thought he was. And it was an embarrassment to the family. And the father wanted King David killed off, but it wasn't proper to kill him off the hand. So he'd let him go out in the flocks in the Judean desert where there's plenty of mountain lions. And at the time of King David, 2,300 years ago, there were plenty of bears too. 2,500 years ago, there were bears, and the 3-year-old didn't have much of a chance at life expectancy out in the Judean desert as a shepherd. Then he went out there, and that's why King David, that's where he learned to use his slingshot. He killed a lion and a bear when he was a young boy. And excuse me, my calculation was wrong. It's sticking in my head. My calculation, that's King David. We're talking about 2,900 years ago. 2,900 years ago. Okay, so I can understand King David as a little boy killed a lion, a bear, and where did he get the fortitude to stand up to Goliath when he was a bar mitzvah boy? 12 and a half years old, right before his bar mitzvah. Where did he get the fortitude to stand up to Goliath? Goliath opened his mouth, and the prophet tells us that all of Elah Valley, this is the valley, if you go a little bit south of Ramat Beit Shemesh, you get to the Elah Valley on the way to Beit Guvrin. It's a beautiful valley. And the Philistine army stood on one of the hills, and on the opposite hill was the Israelite army. And Goliath went down into the valley, and Goliath gave a yell, a challenge, and it sounded like the lion. The whole valley shook. And can you imagine a 12-year-old boy with no armor, and he goes and meets this beast, this giant. Another little boy would have got a heart attack. Not King David. Not King David. Now we can understand what King David says in Psalm 23. And Psalm 23 is the most popular psalm of the most popular book that was ever written. And King David says, and he's talking about the Elah Valley, where he's looking at Goliath in the face, and he doesn't know how long he has to live. But he knows one thing, that this nasty beast has just cursed Hashem's name, and that's a no-no. And this gets David's dander up. And David says, though he's talking to Hashem, he says, though I walk in the valley of death, I shall not fear, for you, Hashem, are with me. That's it. You're looking at the lion, I'm not going to fear, because you, Hashem, you're with me. Cherish, brothers and sisters, we can do the same thing every minute of our lives. Look at the problem in the face, look at trouble in the face. Though I walk in the valley of death, I shall not fear, for you, Hashem, you're with me. Gam ki elech begeit salmovis lo irara ki ata imati. How do we do? Ain't on Bilvado. There's no one but Hashem. There's no one but Hashem. Get television. I don't see anything. Don't see lions, don't see terrorists, don't see enemies, don't see antagonists of any kind. Only see Hashem. Ein od milvado. There's nothing but Him. These are the 3 words. The 3 words that completely take anxiety out of our lives. And the biggest anxiety bust that could be. Ein od milvado. There's no one but Hashem. And that's why Hashem gives us tribulation. And He gives us the lions in our lives to bring us close to Him. Because we can't build muscles if we don't lift weights. We can't build spiritual muscles. We can't build Emuna by sitting on the sofa, watching TV and eating chocolate ice cream. It doesn't work like that. Hashem has to give us challenges. And we can see our challenge and say, Hashem, I'm not fooled. I know it's you. I know it's you. And you give me this challenge because you love me and you want to bring me closer to you. As soon as you say that to Hashem, Hashem, I know it's not the lion. It's you hiding behind that charade. That's already 50% of the problem is finished. Now it's just a technical problem, how to get it done. But you've done a proper spiritual diagnosis, a spiritual prognosis, and you know that's Hashem right there. That's it. Okay, now that you're not going to be anxious and you're not going to It's normal to have a little bit of fear, a little bit of worry, but not this crazy stress and anxiety. Okay, maybe trepidation, let's call it. But trepidation doesn't neutralize your mind. As soon as we have extreme fear and extreme anxiety, this is what the evil inclination wants because we're neutralized. The enemy is neutralized. It can't function anymore. And this is from the evil inclination. We can't let that happen. We can't let him get the upper hand on us. So we have to know to roar to Enod Nevado. So we focus on our Father in heaven instead of focusing on the lion. You know what happens? All the unbelievable Emuna gates of compassion, they blow wide. And you walk right in and you see all kinds of miracles and all kinds of salvations. Okay, now it still sounds strange. I'm going to take a teaching in the Baal Shem Tov. Our holy Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, founded the Hasidic movement. And Baal Shem Tov, he was a master of Emuna. Baal Shem Tov also is a descendant of King David. And a Baal Shem Tov, I'm going to take a lofty teaching of Baal Shem Tov and turn it into a debate between Emuna and despair. Now, you'll be able to identify with this debate because it goes on inside of each one of us. Now, the advantages of living Emuna, they're crystal clear. Just like it did to give the fortitude to King David, they give the fortitude to the little brother, the youngest brother. He's not going to let anyone interrupt his meal because he sees Hashem. He sees Hashem. This gives us the fortitude and the wisdom and the strength and the courage to keep on going. Okay, so I take it in my town. It's an imaginary story. Once again, this is an imaginary story out of Laser's imagination, but based on the Baal Shem Tov's teachings. Went to the post office, and in the post office, there was despair. And despair had a stack of protest letters against the government. He protesting government policies. And Emuna was waiting to mail off a few hundred copies of Faith Under Fire pamphlets to American soldiers in Afghanistan. So there you got despair. He's got his protest letters, and Emuna is giving encouraging pamphlets to American soldiers in Afghanistan. Now, here's the gist of their conversation. Okay, Emuna with a big smile, he says, Boker Tov, good morning, Despair, how you doing? Yes, Despair, how he's doing. So Despair says, oh, don't ask. We've been sold down the river by our own leaders. Good people are now considered criminals, while criminals are elected to office. Nothing's going right. All the politicians care about is their seats, and everything in parliament, they're all trying to milk the government for their own good, and nobody cares about poor, nobody cares about elderly, nobody cares. It's all overall numbers. We're invisible. There's no future in this place, and pretty soon no more anything. And have you noticed the enemies all around us, and who knows what's going to be? Enemies from within, enemies without. Emuna says, hold on, my brother. Stop talking. Hashem runs the world. The politicians don't. Calm down. Despair says, I don't want to hear about your Hashem. I don't want to hear. He's forgotten about us completely. Emuna says, Despair, my beloved brother, no matter what you think, you're still my beloved brother. Hashem doesn't forget about an amoeba, a one-celled animal. He doesn't forget about you. No way. Okay? Hashem loves every one of his creations, from a pebble and a rock, all the way to a vegetable, to a plant, and to an animal, and certainly to a human. And he loves you too. If Hashem fills the needs of a worm and a mosquito, it's a no-brainer that he's going to provide you what you need. So Despair says, come on, then what's Hashem doing about anti-Semitism all over the world? And what's Hashem doing about the government, with the corruption, the scandals, and the Haredi bashing all over the media, and police brutality? And what's Hashem doing about all that? Huh? Muna, you got an answer? Come on, smarty, give me an answer. Can't you see? Hashem doesn't care about us anymore. A lot of people think about that, though, yeah. Okay, so Muna, he doesn't lose his cool. He says to Despair, hey, Despair, the very first tenet of our faith, is not eating donuts on Hanukkah and not eating hamantashen on Purim. The very first tenet of our faith is that Hashem is creator and ruler of the entire universe, and he alone does, and will do every action. It's not my words, the words of the Rambam. So all these things that you're upset about, they're all scalpels in the surgeon's loving hands, okay? And they're all for ultimate good. Hashem is the doctor of all flesh, and he uses these things to cure us. So sometimes a doctor has to make an incision in a patient's flesh to save the patient. And sometimes a doctor has to take out something infected, like an appendicitis, like an appendix. Okay. But that doesn't mean the doctor hates the patient. It means he loves the patient. The doctor wants him to live it to 120. The doctor wants that patient to dance at the weddings of great grandchildren. Okay. So the doctor is the epitome of compassion. He heals people. Despair says, oh, but Hashem's not interested in healing us. I haven't seen him make any house calls lately. Wise guy. Oh, he's so bitter. Emuna says that's because you don't open your eyes. If you don't see Hashem making a house call, you don't open your eyes. Guess what, despair? How's your heart working right now? You know who's massaging your heart right now? You know who's pumping your lungs right now? You know who's deciding what your diastolic and systolic blood pressure are going to be right this moment? You know who's deciding the speed of your pulse right this moment? It's all Hashem. Hashem is making the exact amount of microorganisms in your gut to digest your breakfast. Hashem's not only interested in helping and healing every one of us on earth, but he created us in order to bestow his compassion, loving kindness on us. He's so loving. So what looks like an impending disaster, it's all basis of the redemption of the people. Remember, we couldn't have received the Torah, and we couldn't have been people if it didn't start with slavery in Egypt. And you look in recent years, rockets from Gaza and the anti-Semitism in the US and Pittsburgh and Jersey City and Muncie and Texas and all these things that happen. Okay, I can't explain them right now, but they're a big puzzle that Hashem is putting together, that when Mashiach comes, we're going to see it. Okay, you can't tell what's if you have a 10,000 piece puzzle and you have 50 pieces of the puzzle, what's in the picture. But the more they come together, you'll see. And the closer we get to Mashiach, and the closer to the Holy Temple, we'll see how that puzzle comes together. Because just stop and think. Have you ever seen an expectant mom go into the hospital and she gives birth with a smile? Oh, that was a pleasure. Let me have another cup of tea. No, she goes through excruciating pain before that birth. This is exactly what we are going through before the birth of the Holy Temple and the birth of redemption. So despair says, oh, I don't believe in all that stuff. I'm burnt out. And besides, I don't even know how to believe. All your belief, it's antiquated, it's illogical, and it doesn't hold the science and modern technology. And come on, Emuna, you're old-fashioned. Get out of here. So Emuna says, wait a second. What's logical in your opinion? Stress, is that logical? Heart attacks, is that logical? Is worry logical? Ooh, anxiety, is that logical? How about living on pills and paying so much money for psychiatric treatment and meds, everyone? That's logical. That's logical. That's what you're put on the world to do. Okay. Despair. Why don't you try something else? You know, if you were a football player and your team was losing all the time, you better change your game plan. You're not going to change the player because you're the player. But you better change your game plan, do something different. So you're losing because you're not happy. And a winner in life is somebody that's happy. So if you're not happy, why not try something else? I'll give you 3 words to try. It doesn't cost you a thing or what, a cent from you. Ein od milvado. Try turning to Hashem. Try inviting Hashem into your life. You could even say, Hashem, I never learned about you, Hashem. I don't believe in you, Hashem, but help me believe in you. Help me see what you can do. Go turn to him. You've got nothing to lose but your loser attitude. Your pessimism, that's all. And your bad moods, your terrible bad moods. And you got everything to gain, the smile on your face. So focus on Hashem and try and find him. Find some quiet place and begin talking to Hashem like you would talking to a loving parent. Ask him to give you faith. Plead that everything that helps you understand what's going on around you. And you'll accomplish a lot more when you become calmer and use all that emotional energy for better pursuits. Despair, meanwhile, he's taking a sneak look at the pamphlets at Emuna's hand. And he says to, hey, Emuna, what are those pamphlets? The picture of the sunset. That's very beautiful. So Emuna says, oh, these are the teachings of Ein od milvado. Even the guys under big pressure in Afghanistan We're teaching them that there's no one but Hashem. And they're now available in English, and they do wonders for soldiers, and they do wonders for prison inmates, and they wonder people in hot spots around the world, and they do wonder for regular housewives and school teachers as well. It's something soothing for the soul. So they'll help you get to know Hashem and learn about his divine mercy, learn about how he is. The Spirit says, well, can I have one of those? What do they cost? He says, my brother, pleasure. Takes it's on the house, open up a whole new life for you. So Despair, he looks and he goes out the door. Meanwhile, he takes a stack of protest letters and he puts them in a trash can. And he says, I'll see you, Emuna. I'm going to give this a try. So Emuna waves back at Despair and he says, God bless my brother. And he turns to the postal clerk and he says to the postal clerk, can you give me a bulk rate for 500 pamphlets to USO in Afghanistan? And by the way, sir, did you ever see an Emuna pamphlet? So he can't get away without giving the postal clerk an Emuna pamphlet too. And the postal city clerk says to Emuna, he says, how do you know I need big miracles? Emuna says, well, I didn't know, but our Father in heaven knows. So if he had me come at this particular hour on your shift and at this post office, not post office to go to, then I'm a mailman too, because I'm delivering you this pamphlet. It's a postcard from Hashem, and he'd love to hear back from you. Okay. And that is a discussion. That's the age-old debate between Despair and Emuna. The Baal Shem Tov talks about it in the context of early 18th century Europe. Okay, but this we talk about it translated to our times today. And guess what? Beloved brothers and sisters, Hashem wants to hear from you too. Tell Hashem what's bothering you. Tell Hashem that you're about to have a medical procedure done and you're afraid. Tell Hashem that you've got a bill and you don't know where you're going to pay it from. Tell Hashem. Take your worries and throw them all in Hashem's lap and talk to Hashem. And you're going to be amazed to see the big solutions, because really that discussion between Emuna and Despair, it's not something out of my imagination. And that's the idea from the Baal Shem Tov. But you know who Emuna and Despair are? Emuna is your good inclination, and Despair is your evil inclination. Emuna is giving you hope, but Emuna is drowned out. Emuna has a very delicate voice, and Despair's got a loud, mean voice. And most of the time, he tries to shout down Emuna. He doesn't want you to have Emuna. But what you could do is you could tame the tiger, sit, and listen to the little voice. You know how to listen to the little voice? You take that little voice and you use it to talk to Hashem. It's your good inclination. Hashem, let me hear you. Hashem, let me hear you. And this is the difference between Emunah and the evil inclination. Emunah is a soft voice. It's a fleeting voice. When Hashem speaks to you, King Solomon describes Hashem's voice in Song of Songs. He says, Matzitz min ha'chalakim. Hashem looks through a peak. Hashem says something fleeting. When you get a little eureka moment, and it lasts for 1/10 of a second, you get like a bright feeling in your brain. That's Hashem talking to you. But you know, when you get depressed and you get anxious, worry. It's like in Yiddish, they say, Dreakop. It drives you crazy. That is the evil inclination talking. That's the difference between the two. And when you feel that little voice and you get happy, Hashem talks to every one of us. In Pirkei Avot, it says, the voice comes from heaven every day. He talks to each one of us. How many of us hear that voice of heaven? We have to listen. But when we listen to Hashem and we're used to communicating with Hashem, you get to it. I met somebody that doesn't know Emuna thinks, well, maybe Laser Brody smokes something or takes substance. No, it's all what the book of Psalms, the world's bestseller. What are the 150 Psalms? The 150 Psalms are the protocols of King David's daily personal prayer with Hashem. That's it. And you can talk to Hashem whenever you want. King David, he tells Hashem, he's scared. He tells Hashem. King David tells Hashem he would have been bipolar. King David says it, Psalm 139, he would be bipolar. What does he say? He says, Imasak shamayim shamata. He says, Hashem, when I'm so high and I'm flying way up in the heavens, I see you. Imatzia shol hineka. And Hashem, when I am so down, I'm below purgatory, you're there. So he says, I see you. I see you everywhere. And this is now we can understand Psalm 23, because King David says, Shiftecha, Mishantecha, Heimenachmuni, Hashem, whether you act to me like a punishing rod or a leaning stick, either one, they comfort me. Just all I want, when King David says what he's most afraid about anything in Psalm 51, he says, Al tashlicheni milfanecha uach kodshecha al tikach mimeni. Hashem, I don't care what you do. Just don't leave me. Don't cast me away from you. This is what King David, this is comfort. Knowing that Hashem is in our life. Knowing that Hashem is in our lives is the greatest comfort you can feel. It'll make you young. It'll make you look good. It'll make you feel good. And there's no eye makeup or no cosmetics or nothing that can make you so beautiful or a man so handsome as the light of Hashem illuminating your soul. And that reflects out of your brain. And this was what the great tzaddikim there, Rizal could see it, the Baal Shem Tov could see it. And I know that there are tzaddikim alive with us today that they could see the light of Hashem reflecting a person's soul. Not only that, but to prove it, the Chafetz Chaim said that an animal can feel whether a person is connected to Hashem. Have you ever been in a busy train station, been in Central, you've been in Manhattan, in Grand Central Station, and a stray dog comes in, and there may be 5,000 people in the train station, and the dog makes a beeline up to one particular person and starts barking like crazy and even grabbing the person's pant leg. And the person, he calls a cop, get this dog away from me. You know what the Chafetz Chaim says about that? It is certain that that individual slandered another human being. Because when slandering another human being, heaven forbid, a person loses a divine countenance, and then his radiance, his aura is a lot less. Now, when an animal sees a human who is devoid of an aura, the animal sees an animal on two. Animals can't stand animals on two, unless it's a monkey up in a tree. And say, how can you not up in a tree? And it doesn't have a long tail, but they can't stand it. They get very upset. But when an animal sees a divine aura, and we see this too. This is Daniel in the lion's den. And if you don't believe Daniel in the lion's den, why the lions were hungry lions. Just said 350 years ago, the Or HaChaim, the king of Morocco, took Rabbi Chaim ben Attar and threw him in a lion's den. And he came out just like Daniel because he was such a holy man. And these are the real deal. When you have Hashem in your life, it changes you the inside, changes you on the outside. And there are people that maybe not spiritually can't see it, but you certainly see it on the inside. And no matter if you walk in the valley of death, Hashem is with you, you'll fear no evil. Fear no evil means no anxiety, means inner peace. And that's the way to inner peace. There is no lasting way in psychotherapy to inner peace unless the psychotherapist uses Emuna and teaches Emuna. Hashem. So that's the next thing I'm going to hold up here, and then go on to our next unit. And we're going now to really strengthen our Emuna so that our Emuna becomes second nature.